So, in the midst of all the success you've achieved through the years and all the people you befriended and knew, you mentioned you formed this special bond with Debbie Reynolds. When did you first meet Debbie, and what sticks out to you all these years later about that meeting?
I had already joined the Thalians, which had been founded by a group of young people that got tired of being called hard drinking, pot smoking asses that had nothing to contribute to society. And they said, let's get together and what the hell, we sing around the piano and carry on and do jokes. Let's put something together and put it on stage, sell a few tickets, and make money for worthwhile charity. And so they sent out Mamie Van Doren and what's her name? The other one with the boobs. Jane Mansfield, God love her, as our ambassadors to find a good charity. And they came back and said, well, all the good diseases have been taken. And so, but they found a lovely doctor that was dealing with emotionally disturbed children. So we took up the cause, and I had joined and I belonged. And I'd go to meetings. I got promoted or voted onto the board. And I would go to meetings. And the first one that I went to was at Debbie Reynolds' home. And that was the first time that I met Debbie. And I thought, wow, what a super gal. Here was this superstar young woman that was raising a family, that had lived through this rotten divorce and world notoriety with Eddie Fisher, and was now married to Harry Carl, the shoe magnate, and still had time to put us all into to have a little dinner and meet for a very worthwhile charity. And I learned a lot from Debbie, and she watched me. She kept her eye on me, and one day said, you know, to hell with going outside of ourselves for a new president. Let's make Ruta president. And I got voted into the presidency, which is a place that she and I switched roles for, God, 40 years, I think, either president or chairman of the board. And I'm still chairman of the board emeritus now. And we just honored Gary Sinise, this marvelous man. And I'm just so sorry to say that he lost his 22-year-old son to a rare illness. And what a fine man he is. He's done so much for our American vets. And our charity has now gone from mental health Hollywood and made it mental health for our returning veterans. And we joined a group at UCLA called Operation Mend. They heal the broken, fractured bodies of our returning veterans. And we Thalians deal with the broken and fractured mind and spirit. And if anybody is of a mood and a mind and a heart, a generous heart to contribute, please go to the Thalians, THALIANS.org. Remember, .org, and read about us. And if you can contribute anything, it will be so much appreciated in healing our returning veterans from the problems that they suffer from. And I thank you. They thank you. God thanks you.
Well, we'll put that on the screen for people to be able to upload and see. You know, another aside from Debbie, another luminary that sticks out to me is your friendship with Lucille Ball. Am I correct that you guys bonded over polka dots?
Yes, we did. That's amazing that you're wearing those gorgeous things, and I thank you. And Lucy has to be smiling down and saying, where'd he get that jacket? I want it. I first met Lucy, and remember that she was one of the biggest stars that ever happened, because I mean, their television series all the way across the United States, and to this day, people are watching Lucy every day. She loved the races, and her husband, of course, Desi Arnaz, loved the races. And they had a home, and they used to go to the track at Del Mar. They had a home nearby. And I had been invited by a friend to fly down to Mexico and then double back for the races at Del Mar. And we would be in the box with Lucy and Desi. Well, it was Be Still My Fabulously Foolish Heart to be with her. And thank God I was wearing a dress with a black top and great big, huge, voluminous skirt with black and white polka dots, a little bit larger than yours, about the size of the bottom of a Coca-Cola thing or a glass. And she fell in love with my polka dots. And of course, I realized then from then on that we would be friends because of my polka dots. And when I did get to work with her, I always tried to find something that had polka dots. She always loved what I wore. I was very flattered by the things. I once came in with a see-through plastic raincoat that had wonderful big white buttons on that almost looked like big polka dots. And she loved it. I'll be damned. I ran out to Orbox or wherever I got it, and I bought one for her and had it brought into her. And she always loved my jewelry, big. I've always loved big, clunky jewelry. You can tell by earrings. I don't wear itsy bitsy stuff, big, massive stuff. And she was a bigger girl than I. And occasionally she would borrow something from me. And then she would forget to bring it back. And I'd have to call her and say, may I borrow back what you borrowed from me? It was such fun. And when she passed on, I'm sorry to say, and went to meet her maker, her daughter, little Lou, Lucy Arnaz, of course, gifted me with scarves like this. This one isn't one of Lucy's, but it could have been very similar. And she gifted me with a bunch of them because Lucy used to wear them tied in her hair a lot. And I did too. And they're precious to me. And they're a lovely gift that remind me of her all the time.
That's just so wonderful. Before I want to talk about your book, I want to talk about your show. But before that, I did just want to ask you a couple of questions about TV, because we kind of skipped over that a little bit. In the midst of all these films we've discussed so far, I mean, you were hard at work on some of the greatest Western genre TV shows and movies of all time. And we're talking like Gunsmoke, Maverick, Stagecoach West, Rawhide. The list like just goes on and on and on. What was it like working in and around kind of that Western genre in Hollywood at that time? Was it kind of a tight, like knit sub community within Hollywood, or something else entirely?
Well, I think that in some cases, most of the actors, performers, were in a smaller group because you needed somebody that wasn't afraid of horses, could get on and off them without stumbling and carrying on, wasn't afraid of wagon rides, wasn't afraid of the early morning hours because you had to get up at the crack of dawn to get to the studio or wherever for the pickup to be driven out to the location, you know, an hour and a half away or whatever. But it was a great group, and we got to work a lot with the same people. However, the people that I really admired, David, were the Wranglers. They taught me so much. They taught me to handle guns easily and not be afraid of them. They taught me how to shoot. They taught me how to aim. They taught me how to fire well, you know. They taught me how to ride a horse and hang onto the reins. And I mean, they didn't take me out and do lessons. They just said, little Missy, when next time you do that, and if you want to get off gracefully, why don't you bring the horse to a halt near a step where you can get off easily? Because I was little, you know, I'm only 5'3", and the horses were usually enormous. They looked like elephants. Oh, by the way, I rode an elephant. I rode one, and Lucy rode another one for the Thalians for the opening of the circus here in town. Let me tell you, riding an elephant in skinny tights and straddling an elephant's head is not the most comfortable spot in the world. Anyway, the fabulous Wranglers were wonderful to me, and I loved them. And they were usually the same group kind of turned up all the time on the different shoots. But then working with the stars on those shows were fabulous. Wow, you mentioned Rawhide. And when I stop and think of Clint Eastwood, became my long-term friend. Dave, it took me, friendship or no friendship, it took me 20 years to get Clint to be our honoree for the Thalians. He was very reticent about being that kind of a star. He kind of is laid back and a little bit shy about being boy wonder, the star of something. But he was gracious and wonderful. But that SOB hasn't hired me for a movie. I think I better remind him of our friendship. His birthday is the day after mine. That's how I got him to be my honoree for the Thalians. I called him and said, would you give me a birthday present? My birthday is May 30th. And he said, you give me a birthday present. I'm May 31st. Tell me I don't have to come.
Oh, geez.